Have you ever sensed that you're experiencing an existence that doesn't genuinely belong to you? That despite everything seeming fine, something within feels shattered, repressed, and inactive. Perhaps nobody else sees it, and maybe you can't even articulate it clearly, but you feel it. A quiet anguish, a discomfort masked as tedium, indifference, or weariness. And that's where the problem starts. You were conditioned to sidestep it. They advised you that a fulfilling life is a tranquil one, that anguish is a sign of failure, and that experiencing pain is an error. And you accepted it. But the natural world would deem that a falsehood, a soothing, enticing falsehood that holds you back. Because, according to him, the genuine driving force of life is not the yearning for tranquility. It is the urge to conquer. He termed it the will to ascendancy. And, take note, this has no connection to subjugating others. It's about mastering yourself, about transforming every setback into resilience, every stumble into progress, and every ache into an instrument. The reality is, if you feel immobile, insignificant, or aimless, perhaps that's not a defect of yours. Maybe it's merely the unavoidable result of living contrary to your inherent nature. The natural world believed that life doesn't crave ease. It yearns for vigor, development, and confrontation. It urges you to plunge into the void of the unfamiliar and emerge more robust. This message is for those who are weary of concealing behind justifications, who sense something within yearning to awaken, and who have already grasped even without. Knowing how to express that adhering to the conventional route won't lead you to anything remarkable. It's time to face what you've been dodging your entire life, your own capability. You are on the verge of entering perilous terrain because once you comprehend what the will to ascendancy is, there's no retreating. Unawareness ceases to be soothing, and inaction becomes intolerable. You begin to perceive clearly all the subtle methods society has instilled in you to be lesser than you are. But if you possess the bravery, this could be the initial stride towards becoming someone you hadn't even imagined was feasible. The natural world stated that what doesn't vanquish you strengthens you. The query persists. Are you prepared to cease merely enduring and finally commence living? The natural world did not compose to appease. He composed to stir. His expressions were like mallets, not for embellishment but to demolish delusions. And one of the most significant illusions he attempted to dismantle was the notion that humans pursued joy above all else. According to him, this is a deception propagated by faiths, political frameworks, and a decaying ethos that transforms us into tamed, compliant, and feeble beings. Humans, the natural world asserted, do not yearn to be content. They yearn to be formidable, to flourish, surpass, and triumph. And this is precisely what he termed the will to ascendancy, an unseen, instinctual, pulsing energy that resides within every living entity, a primal vigor that seeks not steadiness but growth, not repose but intensity. The will to ascendancy is the very core of life, propelling you ahead, upward, and beyond. But be cautious. The will to ascendancy is not about vanquishing the external realm. It is about conquering your inner realm. It is you versus you. It is every choice that defies your apprehension, every decision that necessitates valor. Each time you gaze in the mirror and opt not to accept what you observe, it is when you cease requesting authorization to exist and commence affirming yourself as the architect of your own journey. The natural world perceived this will as the authentic basis of existence, but it does not tread alone. It is accompanied by other notions that constitute the foundation of his doctrine and collectively form a genuine framework of triumph. The reassessment of principles, for instance, is the procedure of dismantling inherited ethical values, those that advocate compliance, meekness, and remorse, and establishing fresh values grounded in potency, liveliness, and the endorsement of life. The natural world declared, God is deceased. And what does that signify? That unquestionable truths, creeds, and the structures that dictated right and wrong have crumbled, and now it is your responsibility to determine who you aspire to be in this world devoid of supports. Another pillar is perpetual recurrence, the concept that you ought to exist in such a manner that you would welcome repeating this identical life, with all its blunders and agonies, for eternity. A harsh examination of genuineness, a quiet inquiry that demands a sincere response. If you were compelled to experience this life precisely as it is, endlessly, would you embrace it or would you despair? And ultimately, there is the superhuman, the ideal of one who diverges from mediocrity and the crowd mindset and ascends as the creator of oneself. He does not trail the world, he molds the world. He does not seek significance in life, he bestows significance to life. All these ideas revolve around the will to ascendancy. They are born from it, nourish it, and revert to it, because fundamentally, everything in the natural world revolves around a singular demand: become more than you are. And this is not a proposal, it is an existential summoning. But what transpires when someone endeavors to pursue this route? What does life require from those who genuinely choose to evolve? This is where we venture into the most arduous and transformative domain. Of all, anguish, because there is no triumph without distress, and the natural world comprehended this better than anyone. In the subsequent segment, we will discuss what distress genuinely signifies and why, perhaps, it is not a hindrance, but the fuel for your metamorphosis. If this material resonates with you, tap the subscribe button and follow the channel. Thank you for your backing. Do you wish to develop, to become someone more resilient, liberated, and conscious? Then prepare to endure. Because, contrary to what contemporary society attempts to persuade you, anguish is not a defect in the arrangement. It is the arrangement. Distress is not an error on the voyage. It is the very route. And the natural world grasped this like few others. He endured distress in his being, persistent sicknesses, communal seclusion, and intellectual dismissal. And yet, or perhaps because of this, he penned some of the most influential thoughts in Western doctrine. Because he understood what almost nobody has the audacity to acknowledge. Anguish is the cost of transformation. We exist in a realm that worships joy and vilifies agony. All things revolve around ease, diversion, and numbness. We are continually taught to shun unease. Yet, nature viewed pain as a transformative journey, something that, when faced bravely, does not destroy but refines you. He stated, "You must embrace turmoil within to birth a dancing star." This statement is not mere poetry. It is a harsh truth about the essence of the human spirit. Genuine strength arises from fracture, true courage from conquering fear, and real clarity follows collapse. Need examples. Consider when you finally set limits after being crushed by someone, when you reconstructed yourself after a loss that seemed insurmountable, or when you decided to change, even if it meant losing everything. You did not grow in spite of the pain. You grew because of it. Nature saw anguish as the battleground of the will to power. It is there that you discover your true self. While everything is smooth, anyone can seem strong. But when life tears at your flesh, when everything you know crumbles, and when you are left alone with your demons, that is when you have the chance to become something the world cannot control. And that is exactly why many avoid this journey. Because growing means eliminating the weak version of yourself, and no one emerges unscathed from such a transformation. Many prefer to stay small because it is easier to blame the world than to face their reflection, easier to hide behind distractions than to confront pain openly. But here is the truth. All untransformed pain repeats itself. Ignored suffering recycles itself, and you keep returning to the same place with the same wounds, complaining about the same things. Nature invites us to do the opposite, to transform suffering into strength, like a warrior who does not flee from battle, but who smiles when he sees the enemy approaching because he knows that is where he becomes most lethal. So, if pain is inevitable, the question you need to ask is not, how do I escape this, but rather, how do I use this to grow? This is the true Nietzschean philosophy, not an escape from pain, but a dance with it. And if you have understood this so far, you may have already noticed a pattern. Most lie dodging what would make them stronger. The will to power exists within everyone, but few have the courage to embody it. Why? In the next part, we will confront this question head-on. Why are so many people trapped in weak versions of themselves? Be honest. How many times have you felt that you could be more than you are, but some invisible force pulled you back into the same routine, the same fears, and the same habits that keep you small? How many times have you had an impulse for change, a flash of courage, a genuine desire to break free from everything, but in the end, you remained exactly where you were? The truth is brutal. You are stuck, and worse, you may not even know it. Nature would call this decadence, a state of mind where life weakens from within. It is not visible in the eyes of those looking from the outside. Often, you have a career, a relationship, friends, and hobbies, but inside, you are paralyzed, dead in motion, because being functional is not the same as being alive. Truly, living requires strength, and strength requires confrontation. But what do most people do? They adapt, they settle, and they accept the rules, the roles, and the masks, all in the name of peace. But the peace sold by the modern world is anesthesia, not fullness. It teaches you to survive, not to live. You learn to avoid conflict, to avoid pain, and to avoid exposure. You learn to please others, to appear good, and to be kind, even when your spirit is screaming for change, and the result of this is a domesticated soul, a withered spirit, and a human being who could be a thunder but chose to be a whisper. Nature had no patience for this kind of existence. He saw it as surrender, as a betrayal against one's own nature, because within you exists a power that is being sabotaged daily by your excuses, by your inherited beliefs, and by your cowardice disguised as prudence. Every time you remain silent, when you should take a stand, you weaken yourself. Every time you choose what is comfortable instead of what is necessary, you drift away from your greatness. Every time you settle for less than you deserve, you are telling the universe, I accept being small. And here is the cruelest point. No one is coming to rescue you from this. There is no savior, no master, no government, partner, guru, or magic formula. Liberation does not come from outside. It is born from the non-negotiable decision to break with the weak version of yourself, that version that lives to please, that flees from pain, that fears judgment, and that needs approval to feel alive. That version needs to die, because as long as it exists, your power will be in captivity. But breaking free from this prison is not simple because it is not made of visible bars. It is made of ideas, beliefs, and stories you tell yourself about who you are. And you believe these stories so much that you don't even realize you are trapped within them. Self-sabotage for nature is a vice of weak souls, people who are afraid of their own freedom. Do you want to live the will to power? Then start breaking these invisible chains. Face the fear of making mistakes, of failing, and of disappointing others. Because the more you try to protect yourself, the further you drift from your truth. Nietzsche believed that a human being only fully realizes themselves when they risk being misunderstood, hated, and rejected, all in the name of something greater, becoming who they truly are. But this leads us to an inevitable question. What does it mean in practice to surpass oneself? What is this process of transformation, this journey of confrontation with oneself? How does the true inner strength of those who dare to break with everything manifest? Next, we will dive into the central idea of Nietzschean philosophy, surpassing oneself as the purest form of power, and understand why only those who face their own abyss can touch true greatness. Most people live trying to conquer the world. They compete for status, for likes, for higher salaries, and for more admired bodies. They struggle to prove something to others, as if external validation were the definitive seal of their own worth. But nature taught us something that destroys this superficial logic. True power is not about defeating others, it is about defeating oneself. And that is infinitely more difficult because overcoming others can be a matter of skill. But overcoming oneself requires courage. Courage to face your own vices, your mediocrity, your procrastination, your lies, and your pride disguised as humility. It is a silent, invisible, solitary war fought every day within your mind. And most give up before they even start. Nature saw life as an eternal process of self-overcoming. He believed that the human being is not a fixed essence, but a becoming, a flow in constant transformation, and that the only life worth living is one where you reinvent yourself, destroy yourself, and rebuild yourself like an artist shaping themselves into a masterpiece. But here's the detail no one tells you. Self-overcoming hurts because it requires you to betray the version of yourself that brought you here, that version that learned to survive, to protect itself, to avoid conflict, and to hide. This version may have saved you at some point, but now it limits you. And to become someone new, you will have to kill it. Nature had no romantic illusions about this process. He knew that growth is not a straight line. It is a spiral of ups and downs, of progress and setbacks, of days when you feel invincible and nights when everything seems to crumble. But it is precisely in this chaos that power is born. Because real power is not in never falling. It is in rising as a stronger version than the one that fell. Overcoming oneself means challenging that part of you that wishes to remain the same. It is saying no to old excuses, breaking patterns repeated for years, and looking at yourself with brutal honesty, admitting, I can do more, and I am tired of sabotaging myself. It is understanding that the suffering of change is preferable to the comfort of stagnation. Nature presents us with the figure of the overman, the being who breaks with the herd morality, who abandons the need for approval, and who does not seek to be accepted but to be authentic. And to get there, he must walk alone. He must leave behind the shackles of inherited identity and forge a new existence, not as a product of the environment, but as a creator of meaning. The true measure of power, then, is the ability to be reborn, to abandon the shell of who you were, even if it hurts, even if it scares you, even if it leaves you in ruins for a time. Because only from the rubble can something truly new emerge. But, of course, nature did not write for comfort. He wrote for fire. And this process of self-overcoming does not happen in an ideal world. It happens here and now, in this superficial, hedonistic, and distracted world where everything conspires for you to remain weak, numb, and mediocre. And that is why, in the next part, we will talk about the greatest challenge of all: how to live the will to power in a world that does everything to weaken you, how to sustain this philosophy of strength in a time that venerates comfort, conformity, and the lie disguised as well-being. If you are ready for this confrontation, stay with me. Try to live intensely today, and you will be called crazy. Try to be authentic, and you will be judged as selfish. Try to grow, and you will be accused of arrogance. This is the paradox of our time. The world preaches freedom but rewards obedience. It encourages self-expression but punishes those who deviate from the script. It stimulates the desire for change but delivers daily doses of dopamine to keep you exactly where you are. And nature, if he were alive now, would probably spit on the ground and say, "You are being domesticated like herd animals." We live in a society shaped to produce comfort and avoid confrontation. Technology does everything for you. The wellness culture anesthetizes the soul. Social media offers instant validation so you never have to face your own emptiness. Everything is designed so you never question anything, so you consume, smile, accept, and shut up. But the will to power does not survive in this environment. It dies suffocated. Do you want to live as nature proposed? Then understand this. You will have to be the odd one out, the displaced, the one who disturbs, the one who refuses to repeat cliches, the one who prefers the pain of truth to the peace of ignorance. Because living the will to power today means swimming against everything, against the victim mentality, against the cult of easy pleasure, and against the chronic fear of judgment. It means being a living threat to the value system that preaches that it is better to be accepted than to be free. And freedom, in this context, is something radical. Being free today is not doing what you want. It is having the strength to do what needs to be done, even when no one else understands. It is having enough clarity to see the manipulation behind entertainment, advertising, and the positive language that hides cowardice and conformity. True freedom requires you to see, and once you see, you can no longer pretend you didn't. The will to power demands that you take command, that you stop asking what others think and start asking what you need to become. It means living with purpose, in a time that idolizes distractions, saying no firmly when everything around you begs you to give in, and choosing to be hated for your truth rather than loved for your edited version. And this is not a metaphor, it is a battlefield. You will lose people, you will be ridiculed, and you will be misunderstood. But in return, you will gain something priceless: integrity, strength, clarity, and presence. You will walk with a firm spirit, an awakened conscience, and an untamed soul. You will look in the mirror and recognize someone who has not sold out. Nature did not want followers. He wanted arsonists, people willing to set fire to their own lies. And living the will to power is that, transforming your own life into an act of creation, into a work in eternal construction, into a violent affirmation of your own existence. But this brings us to a final point, and perhaps the most important. If you have the courage to live all of this day after day, do you know what will happen? You will become someone who no longer recognizes their old self. You will look back and see another you, fragile, insecure, and conditioned, and understand that they had to die for you to be born. And that is what we will talk about now. In the last part, we will close this dive with a direct, inescapable, and definitive question. Will you choose strength or comfort? Now that we have come this far, the question can no longer be ignored. What kind of life will you choose to live? The one of comfort, predictability, and self-deception, or the one of strength, transformation, and the raw, violent authenticity that nature called the affirmation of life? Because one thing is certain, you cannot have both. Comfort offers you a tranquil but empty existence. It whispers in your ear every day, stay where you are. Don't question. Don't risk. Don't expose yourself. And you listen because it's easier, more convenient, and more socially acceptable. But deep down, you know you are betraying something within yourself. You know you are slowly fading away. You know that if you continue like this, you will reach the end of life without ever having truly lived. Strength, on the other hand, is brutal. It demands sacrifice, discipline, and requires you to bury old versions of yourself, to break away from inherited ideas, automatic patterns, and comfort zones that resemble decorated prisons. Strength does not promise easy rewards, but it offers something that comfort can never give: meaning. Nature believed that life only has value when it is lived as a work in constant overcoming, when each fall becomes the foundation for something greater, when suffering is not avoided but used as fuel, and when you stop seeking approval and start becoming someone the world cannot ignore. Are you willing to do that? This is a question no one can answer for you. But know one thing. If you felt something different while listening to all this, if something within you stirred, rebelled, and ignited, then perhaps the will to power is already trying to awaken, and it will not let you rest until you choose. Either you will bury yourself in comfort like so many others, or you will rise with the strength of someone who refuses to be just another. Now, I want to hear from you. Comment below. What within you needs to die so that you can be reborn? Be honest. This space is for those who are not afraid to face their own shadow. And if this video provoked you, share it with someone who needs to hear this truth, even if it hurts. And don't forget, the next video is just as important as this one. Transformation requires continuity, and I will be here with you, step by step, word by word. See you there.